Welcome to the Marketing Hunger Games. I'm Melissa, and with me today is Caleb Rule. We are both with the Pedowitz group, and I'm the Senior Marketing Manager of Brand and Digital Properties, and Caleb is our Inbound Marketing Manager. In case you didn't know, our session is pre-recorded, so we're technically from the past. The cool thing is, even though we wish it was live, we are going to be hanging out in the chat, and we're also going to be searching hashtag REVTalks on both LinkedIn and Twitter and engaging with you guys in real time. So definitely feel free to be active in both of those and chat with us. Today, we are just going to call it like it is. 2020 has sucked, especially for B2B sales and marketing professionals. A lot of us have seen our team shrink, our budgets have decreased or frozen, our leads have dried up, and our revenue goals have stayed the same. So if you feel like you have been volunteer distribute, you're not alone. Over the next 30 minutes, we are going to give you guys some tactical takeaways and a whole lot of GIFs.
No, really, a whole lot of GIFs.
A lot of GIFs.
So Melissa and I are maybe a little bit different than some of the other talks that you've heard or that you hear ring at B2BSMX. We're more on-the-ground practitioners. And so we're the ones who've been implementing, thinking, feeling, and adapting to what the market has been doing. So hopefully it's a little bit of a different view than maybe a director or an executive who is speaking. Nothing against them, but that's kind of the tack that we're taking here. Hopefully to give you a bit of a cheat code to winning your own marketing Hunger Games. So let's start by focusing on something that Katniss, our lovely heroine, had to do immediately upon knowing that she was in the Hunger Games. That was accepting her crappy circumstances were the new reality that she had to work through.
So Katniss never loses focus of the Hunger Games and winning the Hunger Games specifically. Losing simply was not an option for her. Towards right when her and Peeta get to the Capitol and Peeta talks about not wanting to be a pawn in the Capitol's game, Katniss says, I just can't afford to think like that. I can't afford to think about things that I cannot control. So she's singularly focused on one thing and one thing only, and that's how to win the Hunger Games.
So for us, 60% of our revenue walked out the door. At least that's what we were projecting, because in 2019, 60% of our marketing source revenue did come from events. And so we had projected a higher number using a similar percentage here for 2020. So what did we do? Not to go all sports coach speak on you, but we tried to control what we can control. So first off, let's be real. We totally had a team meeting or multiple meetings. We were like, things totally suck. Things totally suck. But we had to dig in and accept that market dynamics, a lack of consumer confidence, budgets being frozen temporarily as every company figured out what the heck was going on and how the economy and how customers were going to react and adapt to this new situation were going on. We understood that all this was going to dramatically impact our revenue projections for 2020. So we had to accept that reality and then get to work. So if we couldn't invest in events, what could we invest in from a budgetary perspective financially and a budgetary perspective in terms of time? So with finances, it was, okay, we have a multi-channel game plan that we want to take to market. And so let me really accelerate that and kind of see what results we can get quickly. From a time perspective, it was a couple of things. Number one, I went through Google Search Console data and identified that over 250 blogs, mostly older, like 3 or 4-year-old blogs, really weren't being seen as authoritative at all. So I was able to take some of that time and do something that had short and long-term impact by really increasing our site authority. I also identified some blogs that really would do better to be combined because they were cannibalizing each other in search results and preventing one from maybe showing at the top spot. For Melissa, she was able to really focus on scalability of the website. So she relaunched the entire Pedowitz Group website in October of 2019. So she was able to focus on building scalable processes and procedures and templates so that way we could have a clear, concise feel on the front end and the back end of the TPG website, which really made going to market a little bit more streamlined as the year progressed. We also, as a team, examined our AQLs. So we looked at our lead management process internally to make sure that, okay, is our lead scoring acting properly? Is sales able to act on the things that they're supposed to act on? Are leads getting routed to the right place at the right time? And we did identify a couple of gaps where I went, ooh, we may have had some leads slip through the cracks because of reasons X, Y, or Z. And so we were able to immediately address those as well. So look, we had to accept that reality totally bites. And it was going to hurt for a while, and it was really going to hurt our revenue number. But once we had those realistic expectations in place, it really allowed us to start building towards something positive.
Absolutely. So accepting the new normal, quote unquote, is where we started. And, how you can kind of apply this same thought process for yourselves is, number one, cut the fluff. There's a lot of things that we do as marketers that we think we're supposed to do, that we've always done, so we just continue to do them, or maybe it's somebody's little pet project, but if it's not going to directly give you leads and revenue, then just ditch it. It's not worth your time. The next thing is to double down on what is working. So look at your campaigns, look at your conversion rates, figure out where you are getting traction, and then see how you can just expand on that. Maybe you can shift budget from events you're not having anymore and, double down on your ad campaigns. Next is to capitalize on quick wins. So, Caleb was talking about the AQLs in our instance, just as simple as looking for those AQLs that are maybe lost opportunities. They got DQ'd and they shouldn't have been. That gave us some, even if it's just 2 or 3, gives you some quick wins. You can, pass them back over to sales, get them rewarmed up, and, you can go from there. And then my favorite is look for incremental improvements. Think about if you could get just 1% more traffic and a 1% higher conversion rate at top of funnel stuff, or those campaigns that are working that you're going to double down on. What's that going to look like at the bottom of the funnel once it filters all the way through? So one of the easiest ways to get a lot of those incremental improvements is to cater to your audience. Your audience matters more than anything. In order to succeed, in order to win the Hunger Games, you have to make them like you. You have to give them what you want. And in the Hunger Games, Hamish explains to Katniss that making the audience like you is the key to success. She doesn't really have a whole lot of interest in that until she realizes she needs food, she needs water, she needs shelter. And the only way to get that is to make people like you, because if people like you, you'll get sponsors, and the sponsors give you those things. So early on, when she realizes she needs sponsors and she figures out she needs to make people like her and Peta fake a whole ass romance because they end up winning over every single district, to the extent that they change the entire Hunger Game rules and allow 2 winners.
So that whole multi-channel marketing thing that I said back in point 1, where we kind of took that to market and accelerated it, it didn't work. For example, here is a Facebook carousel, which was kind of having people identify what they were interested in. And that was the problem, right? You see 7 key stages of lead management, you see lessons in customer experience. If you were able to scroll the carousel right, you would see something with account-based marketing, with inbound marketing, with Marketo, Eloqua, Pardot, Salesforce, different things that we offer. But I was really trying to kind of have the user tell me what they wanted. Well, that's not really a linear, one-to-one personal experience, now is it? And well, the market kind of told me that. So we knew that in some cases, opt-in rates were decreasing on some landing pages. We had some return site visitor metrics that were dropping. And as noted before, we relaunched the website in October of 2019. So there were some negative SEO trickle-down effects from that. So what did we do? We tore it all down to the studs. We remapped everything, starting with the ideal customer profile, figuring out, okay, who are our personas? What are their pain points? And then do we have content that actually matches their pain points? We built all 3 of these parts into a funnel, and then we mapped it out based on ABM intent data. So this is a huge point of focus for me of late, was really, okay, what are people looking for, and how can we bucket things to really talk to the right buying stage and exactly what they're interested in for their job role and pain points. So it really allowed me to build a semi-linear kind of funnel experience. Hey, if you're in this buying stage and you've read this blog, then maybe I want you to do this call to action. But it was a pretty easy thing for me to identify and market. But for the user, catering to the audience, it's also really much more of a personal experience, because it's a, hey, okay, I'm clearly interested in this. I'm researching this. You've got the data to show it. And now you're giving me what I'm looking for. So it was really going back to the basics of what our ideal customer is thinking and feeling, and building off of new intent data that we had.
Absolutely. So how do you quickly adapt and cater to your audience? Like to Caleb's point, you tear it down to the studs and you start with the basics. One of the first things that we would recommend is auditing your customer journey. Caleb kind of talked through what we did there. Look at those key metrics along the way. Is the journey cohesive? We figured out that ours kind of wasn't. Is there gaps or friction points that need to be addressed? Is there opportunity for improvement? Next would be to revisit those main pain points that your customer has. We're going to talk more. Things have changed in 2020. Even if, your customer's pain point has changed the slightest bit, you might need to adapt your messaging to go along with that. And then lastly, test, and then test some more. The slide that Caleb showed a few back with the 2 ads, we thought we were doing all kinds of great stuff. We were testing. In that instance, we were literally testing like the colors and the graphics. But, probably what we could test, and we will test more moving forward, is, we've adapted our messaging to better address the pain points and the shifts in the market. And so, now we're going to run A/B tests on some of our ads and landing pages around that messaging in particular, so that we can continue to refine and cater to the audience.
So all this is going on, all this chaos is going on. We're relaunching stuff. So really the question is, what the heck, is Melissa as marketers doing with all these hats that we have to wear, right? It's one of the most overused phrases, right? Marketers wear many hats.
A lot of hats.
Well, the problem is that then you get pulled in too many different directions and you're not able to really hone in on what matters. So you have to specialize to weaponize. In the Hunger Games, before all the contestants really get thrown into the fire and into the battle, they are given an option to train. And so, like many people who don't know what they're going to face, they try to adapt, they try to train on as many things as possible and really get a feel for, okay, if this happens, then I can do this. If this happens, I can do this. And then they're prepared for as many situations as possible. So they generalized. Here, though, Katniss decides to zig when everybody zags, and she says, nah, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to specialize in one thing and one thing only. I'm going to master it. And that, in this case, as everybody knows, is the bow and arrow.
It's not a bad summary for someone who's never seen the movie before, Caleb.
Fake it until you make it.
All right, so for our team, we're a team of 3, which means we cannot do it all. Now, while Caleb, myself, and our director of marketing, Majda, have a very broad background and skill set to leverage, there are certain areas where we are each the strongest, and those are the areas where we're going to be able to work both the most effectively and the most efficiently. So we had to start to think outside the box, take into consideration the things we've cut, take into consideration the shifts that we made in our marketing strategies, and figure out how we as marketers were going to specialize to weaponize. And so in this case, we cut a lot of different things out of each of our buckets. Some things we cut entirely, and then we figured out where we could outsource or shift things to, other internal resources. So in my case, I was spending way too much time buried in graphic and web design. And while I have that skill set, it's not necessarily the most effective use of my experience and expertise. So we outsourced those. We brought in agencies to help us with those. We shifted analytics and strategy off of both of our plates. We moved a lot of our analytics to some other internal teams who are better equipped to help us with that. And then we left a lot of the strategy to our lovely marketing director, Majda. And I doubled down on the branding, the product messaging, those shifts in the customer pain points, and how do we talk to our customers about all of that. I got really big into conversational marketing. We've both taken on things in the past couple quarters that we're excited and passionate about. For me, that's conversational marketing. And for Caleb, that's ABM. He doubled down on our ABM platform and just really building out that strategy for us as a company. We also both, in connection with one another, have been really focused on conversion rate optimization of our ads, our landing pages, that entire customer journey. How do we get that 1%, 1%, 1% everywhere we can? And then Caleb obviously has talked a lot about his SEO efforts. That's his key wheelhouse. And a lot of the data that he's able to determine from, Google Analytics, Google Data Studio, Google Search Console, those are able to inform a lot of the things that we're doing collectively as a team.
So look, every marketer in the world is resource constrained. If you're not, at me on LinkedIn, because I want to know what your life is like. But Melissa and I, in our 20 plus years combined marketing experience, I don't think I've ever felt like we have every single resource that we ever need. So here's the thing, you got to rethink the how and the what. Katniss decided, you know what, everybody's doing this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to specialize to weaponize and really understand that I have a distinct advantage that I can take to, in this case, battle, but in our case, market, take it to market. So if you're, like us, you're a practitioner, what are the things that you really care about? What are you passionate about? But also, what are things that that you spend time on that drive revenue? Is there some fluff that we talked about earlier, cutting the fluff? Is there some stuff that you're really spending a lot of time on that doesn't do that? Maybe you need to let your boss know. If you're a team leader or someone who manages a team or multiple teams, ask yourself this. Is my team really spending time on things that matter? Because a lot of times with marketing, the answer is no. Things keep coming out of nowhere and pulling you from what's going to drive revenue. And that's a problem. In fact, if you're getting pulled into all sorts of these harebrained ideas or side projects, then you're not really owning your survival. You're not really taking matters into your own hands. And that's our next point, is you have to take hold of that. You have to own your survival. So in the interest of all the gifts that we have, I'm really looking forward to this one, because I may or may not have snuck it into here. My freezing cold take, and I have waited for 2 years to say this publicly, is that the new trilogy is not that good. At me if you feel otherwise. Whatever.
Okay, next slide.
I regret nothing. So back to the Hunger Games. Look, although hunting for your own food was illegal in the Hunger Games, Katniss said, nah, I'm not about that life. She took matters into her own hands and did not, because she didn't want to be self-reliant, or excuse me, she wanted to be self-reliant. She did want to be self-reliant. So she took matters into her own hands. Her survival, hunting for food, she said, I'm not going to rely on a sponsor for this. That puts me in a precarious situation. I'm going to do this myself. And even at the risk of breaking some rules, that's what she did to really put the onus of everything that she needs to do and is responsible for on her shoulders and off of somebody else.
Absolutely. So for us internally, owning our survival meant honestly addressing a lot of the internal bottlenecks and processes and things that just historically slowed us down. We're a consulting agency. We rely heavily on internal subject matter experts who own our various products and solutions to provide us everything that we need to do to market, to give them new clients to, work on those products and services for. And the problem is client work always comes first. Internal stuff always comes last. I know that we're not the only ones that have ever experienced that. And so, if it's feast or famine, are we going to wait to be fed, or are we going to learn how to hunt? And we decided to learn how to hunt. And the way that we did that was a couple of things. So first, the same Marketo team that supports our customers also supports our internal marketing function. So they were the ones responsible for all of our forums and our landing pages, everything that we needed to launch our campaigns. And, a lot of times if we're trying to go to market quickly and really make a lot of big shifts fast to stay ahead of all these changes and how far behind we are in our number, we don't have time to wait. We've got to go now. And so we figured out, all right, hey, let's start building the landing pages ourselves on our website. Cool, got that. Let's use a tool like Opt-in Monster to control our forms so that, Caleb and I have control over those forms. We can, access some of that data ourselves without having to rely on, Marketo or Marketo team to do that for us. The biggest shift, though, that has drastically impacted our ability to go to market with new offers, updated messages, et cetera, is rethinking how we got all of our content for our SMEs. So previously, they would have to write our blog posts for us. They would write our ebooks, our white papers, our website page content, our outbound emails, literally everything that we need to market a product or service. And we decided to kind of circumvent that a little bit. We brought in external copywriters who were really, really skilled in marketing specifically. And, they could do a short interview with this SME, take some additional, internal collateral, paperwork, whatever, and, turn that into all of the content that we needed and write our ads for us. So we're now getting more content. We're getting better content. We're getting it faster. And the overall process has just been so much faster and more effective, and it has allowed us to really own our survival.
Marketing has bottlenecks all across the board. It could be internal, it could be external, it could be a person who is just slammed, up to their eyeballs, and they want to help you, but they really have a hard time getting to it. It could be a process. It could be a technology that's really just fallen down on the job and makes you have to jump through extra hoops to get something done. What is truly holding you back? Have an honest conversation with yourself, with your team, write it down. I don't, map it out on a board. I don't know what works for you, but then what are you going to do about it? Because nobody else is going to do it for you. You really have to own your survival, just like Katniss did with food that allowed her to win the Hunger Games. Spoilers.
I think that, being honest about what's holding you back is such an important one. And it's one that, I was really honest earlier this year that I was kind of holding myself and our entire team back on certain things. And there was a lot of negative perceptions around how slow certain things were, how well certain things were working. And when I finally owned up and I was like, I'm the problem. And then we figured out how to address it and manage some of that perception. So the next big thing that we're going to talk about is perception matters more than anything. Like the example I just gave, or if you have bottlenecks, internal setbacks, like we talked about earlier, those are going to sometimes lead to a perception that marketing's not doing anything or marketing's not effective. For better or worse, you have to manage perceptions. So I once had a boss tell me that perception is reality. And I am fully convinced that the costume designers that Peta and Katniss had believed the same thing because, all the different districts, their tributes roll into this, big arena before the Hunger Games starts, and District 12 goes last. They were the underdogs. Nobody had ever won. I think one person had won from District 12. Nobody expected them to be any good. Nobody paid any attention. And then all of a sudden their chariot that they're on just catches on fire and they become this like unified badass team. They catch everybody's attention. And they've now shifted the perception from District 2 to holy crap, like we got to watch out for these guys. And they manage that initial perception. And that was one of the big keys to their success, because that was one of the things that started to get people bought into their story that we'll talk about more later on.
Look, in regards to perception, I've mentioned it already, so I'm just going to summarize it like this. Our pipeline tanked. It dried up. There's no other way for me to couch that. The multi-channel marketing strategy I took to market in Q2 did not drive the revenue or even the opportunities that we were looking for. Here's the thing. This is REVTalks. If you are listening to this, you are either a revenue marketer or you are working on becoming a revenue marketer. By itself saying that your pipeline is dried up because your marketing is not working, that destroys any and all credibility that you may have had as a marketing organization. But here's the thing. Okay, we accepted that reality, but what were we going to do about it? We were not going to just let that number dictate the perception of what we were doing. Because here's the thing, we work hard. We know we work hard. But if the numbers don't necessarily reflect the effort, okay, then what are we going to do about it? In this case, we over-communicated and we did a lot of show, don't tell. For instance, as you see on screen, we built a marketing calendar. And we made it so that way it was shared with the entire leadership team. So that way they could say, okay, 2, 3, 4 months down the line, this is what's being taken to market. Here's the strategy. Here's the content that we're developing to really build out those funnels that we mapped out previously when we tore down our customer journey to the studs. And so people could understand at a glance, a picture really is worth 1,000 words here. At a glance, they could see, okay, X, Y, Z, PDQ, and ABC are all coming down the pipe from our internal marketing team. We also really dove into the data. We looked at some of the landing pages and really identified, okay, what is working, what's not working? And then we started asking the question, why? We really focused on some conversion rate optimization and said, okay, what can we scale here of what's working? And then let's really start to bulk that up. And we had the data to back it up. That go-to-market strategy that I mentioned earlier as well, that multi-channel marketing funnel with the content gaps and the personas and the pain points, well, we mapped that out too. This is a very 10,000-foot view, as you can barely see. But we said, okay, if you're X, we want you to do this, and this, and maybe you could go over here, or maybe you could go over here, or this is all related. But again, we could show it, not just tell it. So that way our chief revenue officer or our chief executive officer or anyone on the leadership team could at any time pop in here and say, okay, here's what they're doing. I get it. It's super easy for me to understand. Not that they wouldn't understand if we just told them, but them seeing it is really believing it and is easily digestible communication. Here's the thing. I'm thankful that our chief revenue officer and our CEO and leadership have always had confidence in us. Jeff Pedowitz himself even told our team once, look, I know you're busting your tails. We understand that the numbers are not what we want them to be, but we know you're working hard and I have faith, we have faith that it's going to turn around and that you're going to do a great job. That emboldened us. It really did. But because we were able to show, not just tell what we were doing, to really pivot, it really helped that internal perception a lot. And here's the thing. Thankfully, Q3 came to a close and our numbers were up. We had 10x revenue from marketing than we had in Q2, and our lead pipeline, 85% greater. And that's after marketing automation had already filtered some stuff out. So thankfully, that faith has been well warranted and we're trending in the right direction.
Absolutely. I think that the over communication is honestly one of the biggest keys to managing perception around marketing. Historically, and I know that I'm not alone in feeling this, if you're not communicating those things and you're not talking about the wins, the losses, what you're doing differently, you're not getting that buy-in and kind of proactively managing the perception and expectation of the marketing team, people start to get scared. And when people are scared, they do desperate things. And the next thing you know, this amazing funnel that you're building out that you know is going to do awesome stuff is on pause for some harebrained, last-ditch effort to get leads. So you've got to advocate for yourself because nobody else is going to. And you've really got to be honest. Like, what is working? Okay, how are we going to duplicate that? How can we expand that to a different ICP or a different product line? And then you gotta talk about what's not working. Like, it was not fun for Caleb to go, my Q2 plan that I was so thrilled about, it tanked. But you had to be honest, right? Like, you had to go, okay, It tanked. It didn't do what I thought it was going to do, but here's what I learned from it. And here's how I'm going to adapt that in Q3.
No Employee of the Month awards coming my way. But.
Not yet. But lastly, you got to show, not tell, especially with data. Anytime you can pull data into something, that's going to be one of the quickest ways to manage and change perceptions that you have around your marketing team and how well you're doing.
And look, if all else fails, sometimes you just need a drink. So going back to my treasure trove of Hunger Games know-how, hey, Mitch, my guy, hey, Mitch, is like, you know what? If all else fails, just drink. Here's the refreshments, just have at it. So whatever you do to relax, whatever you need to do to just kind of take a chill pill. For me, that's going out and playing a game of pickleball. If you're like, what the heck is that?
Still don't know what that is.
You can at me. It has a terrible name, but I promise it's way cooler than it sounds. For Melissa, maybe it's walking her 3 dogs.
Yeah, no, he means I sit in my backyard and drink with my 3 dogs in the yard.
That counts too.
It counts.
Either way.
The dogs are walking. That counts.
that still works. But here's the thing. Sometimes you just need a drink. Sometimes you just need to blow some steam.
You kind of got to know when to just say, I've done all I can do. I'm incredibly frustrated. This is not working. And you got to hit the hard reset button. Sometimes that requires a beverage. For our team, and I'm sure like every team that's watching this, there's a lot of battles to fight this year. There's a lot of hard things. Anytime we start to go sideways on the internal calls during the week, we hold each other accountable and we say, save it for the happy hour. And that immediately, it shuts it down. And then Fridays we get together, we get that collective bitch session, for lack of a better word, out of the way. And we're able to like clear our minds, go into the weekend and actually refresh and recharge our batteries to come back the next week and do more.
So sometimes you just need a drink. And if you have your own happy hour or something, just here's our preferred drinks.
Yeah.
I prefer a new fashioned. You can Google the recipe. I think it's the first result that comes up. I just like a little bit sweeter with a little bit of whiskey.
I just keep it simple.
I sometimes use bird dog. Yeah, you're just making me look bad.
That's Open really bottle, pour into glass.
I mean, you know what? My wife does the same. My wife does that with whiskey, so I'm apparently just the wimp guy. I own that. But look, all seriousness, marketing's hard. Marketing's even harder now than it's ever been. Marketing is still responsible for revenue. You should have a number that you're held accountable to. We sure as heck are. It's okay to be frustrated. It's okay to be pissed off. It's okay to be annoyed. It's okay to ask what went wrong, because something probably has recently. Your mental health matters. Make sure you take care of yourself, and also make sure you take care of your team. Make sure that you have some camaraderie. Make sure you want to be in the office or your virtual office. Make sure that you want to pull each other up off the mat and that you're really rooting for each other's successes. Because frankly, we've all got to get through this together, just like you have to get through the Hunger Games together. So to recap, we've talked about kind of 6 things, right? You got to accept that, things suck. Pretty much everybody's probably done that to this point, but look, some things you still probably have to deal with. Internal frustrations, external frustrations, your channels. There's still some things that are really probably grinding your gears. What are you going to do about it? What is that reality that you have to face? How are you going to really talk to your audience? Whoever your audience is, how are you going to make them the center of the story and make them the hero? How are you going to take the vast amount of skills and abilities and things that you have to work on and really dial it down into something that is absolutely going to impact revenue and revenue alone? How are you going to fight for yourself? How are you going to advocate for yourself? And while you also internally message and show, not just tell what it is that you're doing, also really start to change internal perception that no, marketing, it doesn't just spend money, and no, marketing's not just a pens and mugs department, or marketing, didn't just miss their number, or marketing couldn't adapt fast enough to whatever digital transformations that we needed in the market. Marketing's doing a lot, and it's gonna work, even if it's not working now, or maybe it is working now. Here's the perception that we're gonna change of yours because we've got the visuals to prove it. And if all else fails, or hey, even if all of it is working, have a drink. Do something that just allows you to relax, that allows you to up your fun quotient throughout the week.
All right, so we want to keep this conversation going. Caleb and I are big LinkedIners. We like LinkedIn. So we would like to connect with you. Our LinkedIn, names and URLs are here. And more importantly, we would really like to give one of you guys a $100 Amazon gift card to buy something that's not a webcam that you suddenly need, or a desk, or whatever work from home crap y'all had to suddenly buy earlier this year that Amazon was out of. In order to do that, a couple simple steps. Just share a takeaway, a funny moment, something you learned, an idea you had. It could literally be anything. You could make fun of our gift usage or the fact that Caleb hasn't seen Hunger Games.
Mock my Star Wars take. I'll fight you on it publicly.
We literally don't care. We just want to hear from you. So share a post on LinkedIn, tag us both. And we're kind of curious to how the whole LinkedIn stories is going to catch on. Well, I am. Caleb could care less. He's not interested. But I'm going to give you a bonus entry if you do a LinkedIn story and tag us. And
you're just generous. I'm just
I am. I'm generous. It's 2020.
I'm just training for my toddler. Okay. Just getting stingy now.
It's simple. Tag us, post on LinkedIn, and we will pick a winner and contact you at the end of this week. And last but not least, happy Hunger Games, and may the revenue odds be ever in your favor.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
Take care.